was so bad at that, so bad. So even calling Donna and like hysterically crying on the streets, and then her calling Jean and cook, like that was a big lesson in trust falling into those people that love you.
The name
And
of our podcast, Ariana,
tell
is
me,
what they why didn't anybody ever tell me? For
Yeah.
what's our podcast?
No one ever told me. So
No one
like
ever told me.
the topic is the title, Ariana. I loved it in the chat. Like the topic is, so it's like any other pieces of like no one ever told me that and we've covered, promotional topics, switching industries. The last one we just talked about is like I've only ever been told that when you switch industries, you should expect a pay cut. That's not true, everybody. Like,
mm-mm.
can we just shout it from the mountaintops? Like, that's not true. So, you know, really, we created this to Jean's been I'm going to stop saying unofficial mentor because I don't know what would make her official as my mentor. So yeah, she has been my mentor forever since the women's group that we all met at. Um, and and yeah, she really walked me through the promotion that I
Well, I
recently
met you
got.
two, I think, the same time together.
I'm gonna start crying. It's like so bizarre to me that it feels like we all met yesterday because I met Justina on the same day. I think you met Jean. We all met on the same day.
That's right.
And I don't think I'd met my husband. I hadn't met Joey, Justina. It was Scott, but you weren't married. Like so much has happened since
That's
then.
right.
Twin sister,
Um,
sorry.
and it's so exciting to just, I don't know.
Well,
It's a
I
long
think
journey.
actually, Ariana, I was thinking about you this morning because you had met I think you had met him and you were
Oh
like,
yeah.
I am going to marry this guy. I'm like, slow down, you move too fast. You've got to make the morning last. You're like, no, I'm not kidding. And you did marry him. Oh, and he's a wonderful, wonderful person. Every
Yeah,
time I've
he's a
ever
good
been
egg.
with him, I've just loved him up. Like, I feel like he's like a distant cousin, Italian thing.
Oh
And
yes, of
then,
course, yes.
um, I was thinking about you this morning with your wedding dress and how I called my tailor and how, yeah, I said,
It's
Claire, I
the
need your,
special, those little tiny moments where I'm
right.
having a meltdown. My wedding dress has to get tailored. I'm supposed to fly out of the country for work. It's all jacked up. And then, like, who do I call as like my women? I'm just like, what do I do? And then within like not even 24 hours, Jean's hooked me up with her tailor. And then I'm in there and boom, boom, boom. It's like, that's such magic to me. And I just remember crying on the street in New York, being like, my dress is so messed up. Like, I don't know what to do. And within 24 hours, I was like up and at it
At the
again.
tailor. No, I think Donna called me or she texted me and said,
There was a
Ariana needs
telephone
a
for
tailor
sure.
immediately. And then I remember I didn't go to your wedding because Claire was with me. Claire stayed with me that summer,
Oh,
summer of 18. And I go, Claire, we have to go help my friend Ariana with her wedding dress. And you like pulled your wedding dress out of a backpack. I was like, what? Or something like so like, what's going on here? And it was like, oh my God, she looks so hot in this, and the tailor helped you, and all was well.
it's like funny those moments that and maybe this is part of the what nobody ever told me is in those moments that you're most stressed, that emotions are so heightened, th- and also those moments are what cements the community around you for me. Like I know like in
Mm,
that moment when you don't know what to do, that you're so like out of your mind almost, then all of a sudden you know exactly who you need to lean on, and all of a sudden you have this like community around you and you don't feel alone. That's was a profound lesson for me, and I was so bad at that, so bad. So even calling Donna and like hysterically crying on the streets, and then her calling Jean and cook, like that was a big lesson in trust falling into those people that love you. And
mm,
our community of women allowed me to fail at that and then get better
mm.
at that and reflect on that journey to then like strengthen that muscle of asking for help. I'm still like I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better slowly,
Well, I
slowly.
mean, first, I think you just have to remember that there could be a benefit.
Yes. And
Okay,
people
and
love
if
to
there is
help.
a benefit, you might not want to let it go. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So it's like that's why we're here today. That's how we got here at this very moment. So,
yeah.
but whatever. Some people don't have that, and some people, whatever. Now you know.
It
Like
all
I think
takes
you've both made big changes in taking care of your health.
yes. That's
That's a
also
whole
because
nother one. Yeah.
seeing women and being having women in your life be like, don't do what I did, right? The whole purpose of why we're here today, that was so helpful for me. It allowed me to get my shit together, I think, sooner
Oh
than
man,
I don't know. I mean, I'm
that's a
still
good
getting my
one.
act together, but that was a big thing.
Yeah,
Is
your watch was together. You needed some fine
ish.
tuning.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's so kind. Jean's kind.
Well, and so when we met, it
And you
was
both, I know I'm cutting you off, Justina. Sorry.
yeah,
I guess it's the ADHD. That's what my
yeah.
sister would say.
You're excited.
But I mean, you both have husbands that adore you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. He's the
They show
one.
it
He
in different ways,
appreciates.
but I mean, honestly, good choices, solid people. They want to be married, they want children, they want to be part of the partnership. I mean, that helps. Some
Yeah.
Yeah.
women don't have that at all. Like they no, like good choices,
Mhm.
beautiful, nice, kind people.
Hmm.
People that make me I found that we met when I had just met Joey, my
Yep.
husband, and I was not settled into where like I met him and I was like, oh no, I met him too soon. I need more time to figure my stuff out. Like this is too fast. And I think that in being with him, he has helped me and allowed me to be better as myself. And I
100%.
think
Yeah,
about
that's how I feel about my husband.
yeah, and there's
Hmm.
so many, listen, I had so many people that I was fortunate to, have be in relationships with, but that wasn't the dynamic. Like that was not the
Right.
dynamic between me and that person. As much as I cherish that time with them, Joey every day is forcing me in the way that he wants me to live my best life. And in doing that, he'll challenge me. And I know that it only comes from a place of love, not from anything else. And that took time to find um a lot of time to find, and then a lot of it took me, I had to be willing to know that he loved me that much that he wanted those things for me. Like it was hard to believe. I mean, especially dating in New York, you all know how that goes. It's a hot mess. Like it's, you meet a lot of weird people, a lot of great people, but there's a lot of duds out there. And I really had a hard time trusting that he was who he said he was,
Right.
because I'm like, there's no way he could be this kind and all these things. So that took me
Your
time.
husband and bagel meets coffee.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Is
He
that
was
a
my,
cafe?
it was a
No,
app.
it's an app.
I don't
Oh,
even know if it's
oh,
around anymore.
I
Bagel,
think they sold it.
coffee meets bagel, coffee meets bagel.
Coffee meets bagel.
Yeah, he was my second, oh, my third online date. Yeah, and I would have
wow.
never
I
met
didn't
him
know that.
otherwise. Yeah, we had a coffee. We didn't do this on purpose, but ironically, we met for coffees and bagels in Midtown, right by Jeans. And we ended up having like a date that was 24 hours long. Like we had a date, then we took a break, and then we had another date because we had enjoyed spending so much time with it.
A more proper, not
More
bagel and
proper
coffee
date.
date.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So it was
more proper.
but I do think your partner has so much to do with that. Not only that self-discovery, but then the continued support system to fail, to try, to fail, to try. And we definitely, the three of us, lucked out on that.
Yeah, I love that because, um, yeah, I
You
don't think
did.
anyone ever told me that of what to expect when you're dating or to expect that in marriage. Like, and I think, my husband would do well with like, probably a lot of people would do well and still getting that to this day. Like, oh, the way we might love up on someone or have a certain standard so that we get to be our best selves or see, you have that expectation because you see what's possible for someone else. And you're like,
Mm,
you are not, you could be this, you could do this. Um, so yeah, definitely no one ever told you that. And I think, you know,
mhm.
if you look to expect that when dating and choosing your life partner, I think we'd all be looking through a different lens for sure. So that was 10-ish years ago when we all
Yeah.
met. Come this June, that will be 10 years ago.
Whew,
Because
just
Yeah. I mean, I think marriage, no one ever told me it wasn't going to suck. I feel like everybody always said really bad things about it, and
true,
it is
that's
better
true.
than I thought it was going to be. And I've been married now 29 years, and it's been remarkably better than I don't know. In some ways, I wanted it so badly, but I was also sort of dreading it in some ways because, you thought like, oh, I'm never going to meet that person that I'm going to not want to hate. And you're going to have to really sacrifice. And you're going to really, it's going to be all this work. It's like, well, what does that mean? All this work or
Mhm.
whatever the stupid lines are. And granted, we don't have children. So that takes off a huge, but we went through stress with making that decision and
Hmm.
we're, trying to get there and didn't get there. And there's been heartache and there's been other stuff. But
That limbo, the children factor in the dynamic, because we've gone through all of that as well, and we sort of through the miracle of IVF and like genetic testing and craziness have,
right.
our little one now. But we had to kind of figure out, okay, what does life look like without this component to it? And I think knowing that my life would be happy either way. And I remember, for those who haven't been through IVF treatment, it's so many shots and hormones and
So
all
much
of these.
stuff.
It's so much. It is
And it's huge
incredibly,
expense.
terribly expensive. It's emotionally expensive. It's financially expensive.
Right.
From a relationship standpoint, it can be incredibly taxing. I mean, just honestly, you go into appointments every other day, and there are dozens of women at 7 a.m. getting blood work done, and it's just this crazy machine that of hope is like what it kind of feels like. And
Mm.
Yeah,
at some
totally.
point, we had a round where, we had an embryo and it didn't take. And it was like all of those dreams I had of having a baby, it just like all of a sudden it was non-existent. It went from this like, oh my gosh, could this happen, to like, nope. And it was such a rattling moment. And Joey has such perspective on life. There's two things that stuck with me. And he said, it's hard, this feeling, but we lost something that we wanted to have, not something that we have today. Like we lost that feeling of that dream, but we didn't lose anything in our world today. Let's be grateful for what we have. Let's be
Yeah.
grateful for Luigi and our families. And that was a profound like wake up call for me. And then, before we went into the whole round again, the next round of it, he said, I would be so happy if it was just us. We don't have to do this again. We don't have to go through this. And that 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 is an incredibly, when you have to choose whether or not to have children through a scientific method, through a
Mm.
financial method, um it is it's a different thing. And hearing those words, like no one ever told me, find somebody in your life that you want to spend the rest of your life with, where it could just be the two of you and you could just be content in that happiness, that you don't need to add any other pieces of the pie. Because when our kids get older and they live their own lives, like we're raising kids so that they live their own lives. We're going to be their parents, but that at some point it's going to be us again, you know? And that's the thing I always come back to in that. But no one ever told me how hard that decision was.
It's a
Trying to
hard
decide.
decision.
Yeah, it is an incredibly difficult decision to continue going. Every part of that journey has to be a decision. Whereas some people are just able to say, well, we'll just see how fate sort of unfolds, when you have to have everything that's thought through.
Yeah.
Loans, whatever. It's just a different thing.
And in New York, I feel like women do have children a little bit later. And
Definitely.
it seems like everybody has something around that in some ways.
Mhm.
It's when you go into when you go in there at Reproductive Medicines of New York or wherever it was, across the street from what was then Bernie's. Um, it's a humbling experience, but it's also all business in some ways too.
Mhm.
And you just see, and everyone has last year's like designer handbag because everyone's like, all right, I don't know if I could spend the money on this season's
Oh
it
my
bag.
God.
Like I just remember thinking like, and there's a lot of like Orthodox women in there that really are much younger than we are that really want to like they are that is so part of their culture. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going through this again and again and again? And then you start recognizing people, but they're,
Yeah.
they're just there to give you, I guess no one ever told me that really when you go to those places is they're going to just continue to give you the next solution or game, path. They're never going to tell you to stop. That's not their job. Their job is to give you the next solution. What's the next step? What's it going to look? This is what
Like
the
there's
next
no
step is.
counseling along with it unless
There's
you
none.
go and get it yourself. Wow.
No.
Yeah.
They're just going to continue to give you the next solution, which is all very, very invasive.
All
Right.
of it's invasive to a degree that I didn't expect. Like when I say you go in and the amount of women lined up, that it's just a machine. That I recorded myself on my way to the first day to like start the IVF treatment, and then I recorded myself coming out, and I was just crying because you see the amount of women and your body is not your own. It is a weird feeling for me to see that and to feel that. I mean, and I have all these feelings around women's rights to their own bodies that is even more cemented from that experience because it's
Sure.
very real that your body is hormonal levels. It's okay, how big are your eggs growing with these things? How, it's the you are like almost like a tester.
It's all
Yeah.
science.
It's all science. And so that is something that women should absolutely have the right to choose to do or not do in any way, shape, and form with their bodies. Um,
You have to
and
be so
I,
grounded because
oh yeah,
you have to be like, all right. And you have to sort of like weigh the next decision. It's not like an easy boom, boom, boom. Um,
even giving yourself a
and
shot for the first time at home. For me,
yeah,
I was like,
you know what? I had someone come in and do that for me because I was like, I went through it twice, it's 2 rounds of that, and I was like,
yeah,
you know what? For 2 weeks, it's okay just to pay somebody to do it because I can't. I got enough to think about. Look at
yeah.
Justina. Are we scaring you?
I know, I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, I think I've never understood this process to this degree ever. And so I'm very like humbled and then in a place of like incredible um gratefulness too that
Well, I mean,
I
you know what?
I didn't, but also I'm grateful that you guys are sharing it and it just gives me a lot of perspective. So you ladies are
I
very
think,
brave.
like, no one ever told me everybody has their own journey. So that was part of the journey, right? And I'm not saying it was a struggle, but you have to go through life of what it looks like. And everybody has their own, whatever life looks like, situations, struggles, non-struggles. And
Yeah. Jean, sorry. What I'm thinking of right now is I know women, right? Ariana, we're doing this podcast because how Jean helped me in through that mentorship. There's so much that we can, you do a podcast sometimes to be helpful in a lot of different ways through humor,
Of
through like an
course.
escape of a story, or just true, like we want this to be true mentorship in a way and a place to share vulnerabilities. And so women can really see each other in other people's lives and also be like, never knew they had it like that. It only looks like this on the outside, but oh my God. So I'm thinking of women that are going to just utterly cry. We haven't had that yet, but just cry from this conversation alone because there are women that are, I know, that are on the precipice of this and, dealing with PCOS and very scared that this is then going to be where they wind up. And so, what I think is incredible about this is this has been a content topic. And so, it's so wonderful how it's like navigated out is, Jean, I'd love it if you'd speak a little bit more to. We've heard how Joey was able to like get you guys as a couple through to the next round and also just say, like, hey, if that's not for us, like, here's and then Jean, you guys finally together then decided, as you said, you have no kids, but could you just share what that process wound up looking like between you and Bob?
right. I mean, Bob was married before me. And then he got married at like 23, divorced and annulled by 26. So when he
Wow.
married me, I met him at 35 and he was married at I met him at 35 and I think he was 37 when we got married. And I kept saying, I don't know if this is going to happen. And he just kept saying, I just feel like we're so ahead of the game because we actually like each other. I'm like, yeah, okay. So that was good. So it's not like I married someone that wasn't like, destined to be a father. He's like, God, please. Like, you know what I mean? Let's be So at least there wasn't that pressure. And
Like he
then,
really wanted it. It was kind of just like if it happens.
right. And then there
But
was a
where were
time,
you with it? You did want
same
to be a
place,
mom,
same place,
or maybe
same,
not. Okay.
same place. So then I, I mean, it was like a 7 year process. And then the last time I said, well, I could do this and I could do that and I could do that and this. He said to me, okay, I would never say no to you ever. But I just want you to realize that when that kid goes to college, I'm gonna be 70. And he's like, and yeah, I just had to be like,
The
gotcha.
math. The math is mathing, yes.
Yeah.
The math, the math, like you got to do the math. And I'm like, all right, that's a good point. And then but I mean, it is weird. Like, that's, we've chosen to live in the city, right? That I've continued to work. A lot of my friends are work friends or from my volunteer work. I have a couple of good friends from college, but I don't have those neighborhood mom friends and those
Mm.
couple friends from like going to, like my sisters might have. I don't have that. And I socialize with them. So the social life is always like a little different and I don't want to say weird, but then again, like I was talking to my mother on, I guess Friday, and and my mother will be 86 in March. She has a
Mm.
boyfriend, and I go, oh God, it's so weird, isn't it? Like she goes, life is always weird at every stage. Like you can't really like,
Good
she
for
was
her. That's
basically
a good
saying,
response.
don't judge it. Like, it is what it is. And everybody, it's like, I mean, we've had these conversations. One man's ceiling is another man's floor. Like everybody just has to, no one knows if they're going to, if you get married young, no one knows if your husband's going to make millions and millions and millions and millions. And nobody knows if you're going to be the one who gets to live in the enormous house. But in the end, it's like you just have to enjoy your journey. You can't be constantly looking at what everybody else has. Or
Mm.
do they have 3 kids and how are they raising them? Or whatever it looks like. I think you just want to be successful in every situation, whatever that looks like, because you just don't know. Enjoy it and have fun because it goes so fast.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say, but that's just what I try to do.
Think the
And
thing that puts things off the rails is when you have some health situations come
yeah,
up. And
definitely.
we've talked about this a lot. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease at 28 that completely changed my orientation on what I was able to do and what my life looked like. I mean, for context, I had like backpacked for around the world and I had moved to New York and I had, a crazy busy startup job and all these sort of things. And then that diagnosis, I rejected that for so many years and I ignored it and I ignored it. And any of those things, whether it's emotional or physical, they will catch up with you, whether you want it to
Mm.
or not.
Yeah,
Mm.
Um, the blessing is that I was forced because of my health to start to check that sooner. And so I think I learned some lessons maybe earlier than others. But like health is wealth more than anything else. If you have health, you've got wealth that you don't even understand until you don't have it. And that
Mm.
is like Gene, I feel you on that. And I want to like reorient to people who are younger or who maybe haven't had those health issues. Keep that at the forefront of your thoughts. It's the most important thing. It gives you the ability to live your life in the way that you want to. It's a freedom to have
right.
good health.
And also, no one ever told me, but here we're here to tell you, you cannot outrun your problems.
What do you
Just
mean, Jean?
I'm a pretty fast
Because I know a
runner.
lot of people, yeah, a lot of people, Ariana, you just hit it on the nose. It will catch up to you. And there's different events. Again, I'm thinking of people that I know, men, this isn't necessarily not geared for men, but definitely geared towards women. I did have one of my friend's husbands listen to our podcast and was like, oh my God, yeah. And I was like, look at that. And look at that. And it's good for them too. But yeah, I got some people that I know that are just in total oblivion and then they're in the ER. And two people that I'm thinking of, they are not 40 yet. And it's just like, oh no. And two of the conditions too are like more mental health related. So like if you call it stress or anxiety or just trying to do all the life things and we're all in one shape or another, professionally geared toward climbing the ladder, trying to climb the ladder so we financially could be in a better place. Like, I don't know if anyone ever, Jean, please tell us. I don't know if anyone ever is not focusing on those things. Like, they might be the 1% of the population, it feels like, but it just feels they're in this rat race. With kids or not, and when with kids, you have different, more, expenses that you wouldn't necessarily want to make maybe all the time, but um and I could say in those two individuals that I'm thinking about, yeah, they're like trying to outrun the glaring issues that are right there until I'm like, yeah, until it settles you on your ass, literally in a hospital bed in an emergency room.
If you
And
get
and
that
I
lucky.
If you get that
correct.
lucky. Because I
Correct.
will
So
say
like
the
what
mental
is the
part,
thing? Yeah.
I think the mental part will take you down first, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
your mind, like if I think back to my mind would stop me and I would ignore it constantly. And I wouldn't trust it. So like if my mind was saying, Ariana, you got to slow down. Or if my mind was saying, hey, this doesn't feel right. Or if my mind was saying certain things and I wasn't listening to it, that for me was the first kind of like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
I'm screwed. And then the health stuff comes after that. Because once you start ignoring things, your body, what is that book called? Your body keeps the score.
Keep score.
All,
Yes.
yeah, you'll
A
start to
good one.
notice it, your TMJ in your jaw, your back, your neck. And then before you know it, that just progresses and progresses and progresses. And then you end up again, like in the hospital or with some health issues. But I think it starts with the mind. And all of it starts with how you're viewing yourself. I will share a story that I haven't told many people, but I think is a good one. So I've had many therapists throughout my life, and I'm a huge component of therapy, but it's like dating. You got to find the right therapist for you, what you need at that time in your life. And it's not a
Mhm.
one for one, and it takes time, and
Oh,
sometimes it
that's a great
sucks.
distinction for the
Yes.
time in your life for what's going on. I've never heard it that way, and it makes total sense. Thank you for that
Yes.
already.
Of course, sometimes you need somebody to empathize and listen. Sometimes you need somebody to talk to you straight. Sometimes you need a couples therapist versus an individual therapist. And I had a therapist, and I was I had all these narratives in my head that I believed were true. And Joey and this therapist were like, they're not. They're not. They're what you've determined is true, but they're not the reality that you see it.
I think we call those cognitive distortions.
Exactly. It was a
Right.
cognitive, maybe like, I don't know, like miles, like mountain of just cognitive craziness going on. And after months of working with this therapist and making progress, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, there was one session that I just was so adamant that what I believed was right. And it is this, that she left the session early. She was like, I'm really sorry. I can't continue this conversation. You can't hear me. You can't acknowledge it. I'm going to log off and we'll pick this back up next week. And her leaving the therapy session, because honestly, I was not willing to be able to see
Accept it.
outside of my own perspective. Yes, exactly. And accept it. That woke me up in a way that nothing else had. And it was exactly the thing that I needed. And what
Mhm.
happened the week after, everything started to melt. All of those perceptions, all of those,
Is
all
this
of those
before
things.
you had Leona?
This was before I had Leona. And I think back to if I started my parenthood journey before that,
Yeah.
nah,
It's
nah,
good that
nah,
it
nah.
happens before.
1,000%. Because I would just put that on her, like I would
Mm-hmm.
put that perception. But it did take, nobody told me that sometimes you need to feel like devastation. And I think that's what I felt in that moment. I am
Mm.
so hard to work with that my therapist left the session early. Like I am such a mess.
No one would ever believe that. Look at you're like
Yeah.
the big smile,
No,
like
it's true.
But there's,
Yeah.
it's all of that masking, all those things going on. But in her leaving, that was the ultimate support because she came back next week and said, let's unpack
right.
this, right? Like that, she knew what I needed and it got me to where I am today. And, we
Oh, so
still
she
talk to,
didn't just leave you either. She
she
left in
came
that
back.
moment, and then the following week was like, "Are you ready, essentially, to get to work for real?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was
That's
amazing.
amazing.
And we still, now we're still in contact with her and we'll send pictures of Leona and we're just like, thank you for
Being
making our
telling me the
marriage.
truth.
Yeah, and giving us this beautiful reality that we get to live in. It's not perfect, but man, like we're here today because she really woke me up. I'll just be honest, like, and nobody
Yeah.
tells you, but it has to hurt sometimes for it to get through and for you to get
Yeah.
to the other side. If you avoid, it's never going to happen.
Gene and I discussed recently that some people just the topic of therapy and normalizing that, continuing to do that. I don't know that everyone has been reached just yet and knows that it's a normal thing to do. Even though mental health and wellness is so much more of a priority these days,
Mm.
and openly spoken about, but still. And we talked about this, and I said, I just wonder if, like, culturally or financially, the concept of therapy is within certain families. There's certain cultures for
Yeah.
sure we could
People like,
say they do not. Yeah. Or like
yeah,
financially, they're like something happens, and in my mind, which I always like to call out my stereotypes and have them debunked right here, is like, yeah, like rich people, if they have problems, they also have the money to, like, yeah, oh my God, we're going to go through a divorce, or like, oh my God, this is happening, like, let me get my kid into therapy, like go to therapy. Like maybe they're not going to talk to them about it, but also really just focusing on, like, they have the funds and maybe it's a little bit more normalized in their family to go do that. I started therapy after becoming a mom, Ariana, and like,
Oh, interesting. How's that
which
been?
you hit it on the head. Like, and I go now because, postpartum depression and like rage and all of this, and I'm like, I
exhaustion.
exhaustion. And I remember saying, like, I am not, this is not sustainable, like how I'm feeling, how I'm treating people. I just, the feeling of like, yeah, right, you can't outrun this is exactly it. It will get to you at a certain point. You're like, I cannot live this life this way. I would have the
I think
feelings of
that's
like,
the
I,
name of this episode. I can't outrun this.
Mm.
yes, very good. That's a good one, Jean. That's exactly it. I wanted
I
to
mean,
run out of the house. I wanted to leave my house. I wanted to leave my life. And that was scaring me because I'm like, okay, these aren't normal or productive or healthy thoughts. I don't want to leave my husband. I don't want to leave my kids, but I can't do what this is more. And I'm like, what does
yeah.
that mean? And so then I remember saying, like, I can't be too proud to take a medicine, to take a pill, or go to therapy, because if I
Oh,
don't, my family suffers.
Yeah.
Like, it was like kind of like a wake up call, like, wait, if I don't, then it's like a pride thing. Like, and sure enough, I got an antidepressant script, and I did not fill it. So I was saying, I'm like, I'm not going to be too proud. And then sure enough, I had that script and absolutely did not fill it
Mm.
for
I
like a month.
listen. I've already probably said this on this podcast or whatever this is, video short. I don't want to be friends with anybody who's not in therapy or on medication. Okay, I just don't.
No, you
Just,
haven't said that yet. Thank you for saying it.
I just
It's
don't. It's too much work. Thanks, no thanks.
Authentic self. I
And
was telling Scott this morning before we jumped on, I was like, oh my God, I feel like Ariana, this is probably totally wrong, but I was like, I feel like Ariana was like, I don't know, like a liberal arts major, something with like theater or something like that. And then she went and got like a coding course. She like put herself through like freaking coding, and that was cool and somewhat random. And now she's like badass in operations, has a podcast. I'm going to sign up for that, like the Ariana track, like that.
no.
What, it's not a track. Yeah.
And it was never going to be that way. And I remember telling Joey maybe, 7 years ago, I don't know what I'm doing. I was COO, then I was a technologist. Now I'm doing this other thing. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I don't understand. And he's like, it will all add up to something that you just can't see. And
right.
that's what I have today is I'm a fractional chief operating officer for
Bravo.
businesses. I've got my own thing. I've got my dog, my baby girl, my husband, I've got this life that I had to carve out for myself. So I guess if I were to give a life hack to people who are listening at any age, there's something called the portfolio career. And it's essentially where you don't have one thing that you're doing, but you have a lot of different things that you bring into your life. So I would say think about what you want your life to look like and then make your portfolio career. Meaning you have this podcast that you're doing and you have your full-time job and maybe you're volunteering here and maybe you're doing this thing here. That's what your life is going to look like. That's what all of our lives will look like. It will not be this linear one thing unless you choose that. So I would just encourage people to look at their life and almost like if I were to like scrapbook my life today, that would be so bizarre that my 25-year-old self would not have believed it. Okay, you work
Mm.
fully remote, you work with country like businesses around the world, you've traveled all like I wouldn't have believed that talking to my younger self. But that's the hack I would say is think about what you don't think you could do and then maybe just do it and see what happens.